From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay.
And then looking into it, I thought, no, what? Okay, so why isn't everybody doing this?
A new crop for Idaho that just won't stay in one place. A fiery exchange on Capitol Hill over the Conservation Reserve Program.
And I don't know what we can do to stop you. If I have to sue you, I will.
And while trade is all the talk, a weather market returns.
So big picture here, we've still got a lot of very negative fundamentals, but short term, it's all about the weather.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Commodity markets continuing higher Wednesday on wet weather and planting delays. Despite a brief break in the clouds, the short-range forecast continuing to indicate a wet weather pattern. The latest crop progress report showing it's the slowest start to corn planting in Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio on record. Nationally, it's the third slowest start. Only 93 and 2013 were slower. The weather-driven market movement in grains helping pull futures prices off multi-year lows, but analysts caution demand is still an issue.
Now, demand is the question mark here. Demand for all of these crops, corn, soybeans, and wheat, have been sluggish at lower prices. What is this rally going to do for demand? It's probably not going to be good. Exports have been sluggish across the board. We're already competing with large South American crops. We've got a currency disadvantage. We've got African swine fever in China. So big picture here, we've still got a lot of very negative fundamentals, but short term, it's all about the weather. And I think the funds here in this large speculative short are a little bit nervous.
New figures show U.S. tariffs are beginning to make a serious dent in the Chinese economy. China's factory output and consumer spending weakened in April. April's growth in factory output decelerated to 5.4%. That's according to the National Bureau of Statistics. Retail sales growth fell more than 7%. China's foreign ministry said the economy in China, quote, always maintained steady growth. That's after President Trump tweeted the U.S. was in a fantastic position in trade negotiations. Now, a spokesperson said, quote, U.S. trade protectionist measures will have certain impacts on the Chinese economy, but it can be overcome completely. President Trump described the situation with China as, quote, a little squabble. A two-day price rally won't make up for all the uncertainty this planting season between tariffs and the weather. And for farmers across the country and in Delaware, Ohio, uncertainty makes planting next to impossible. Soybean farmer Brett Davis is spending plenty of time out of the field and inside this soggy spring. But it's the storm brewing in Washington that has him uneasy.
We have spent 40 years making a trade partner with China, along with other countries too, but China has grown to be our largest trade partner.
Until 2018, one of every 3 rows being grown was finding its way to China.
What does that do down the road? Can you gain that market back? That's very scary for us as the American farmer.
For him, the uncertainty from failed trade talks makes a sharp pencil and good management secondary considerations.
We're looking at a loss of $3 a bushel. So on that 14,000 bushels of beans that we have left, that'd be almost a $45,000 loss.
President Trump is now calling for another round of assistance somewhere in that $15 billion range.
There are going to be some limitations about what USDA can do, but they can do more.
That includes the possibility of buying commodities to send as food aid.
Well, I think that's going to be a little harder to pull off. We'll see what they can come up with, but the market is already soft, and there's only so many places you can put the extra commodities.
Davis says what farmers really want is to regain a foothold in major markets.
We have to be able to make a profit and at least break even. And where we're at today, for the next 4 to 5 years, I don't see that happening until we have this trade war settled.
But even the pothole paved road that started this week has found some footing.
That U.S.-China deal kind of fell apart, and the market actually was able to rebound. There's huge carryouts that are still a factor, and with the trade talks producing really nothing at this point, it seemed like the down was the only way that it could go.
While uncertainty now rules the day, farmers like Davis still believe in free trade for their products.
That's how we survive, is to be able to sell that crop freely throughout the world.
There is hope on another trade front. U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin telling lawmakers the Trump administration is making progress when it comes to getting steel and aluminum tariffs on Canada and Mexico removed. Several members of Congress have asked for those tariffs to be removed before voting on the new USMCA agreement. Mnuchin, speaking before a Senate Appropriations Subcommittee, also saying U.S. negotiators are continuing to work with China.
There's still a lot of work to do, but I can assure you that President Trump is determined that we have free and fair trade and wants to have a fair relationship with rules that we can compete fairly. As I've said, my expectation is we will most likely go to Beijing at some point in the near future to continue those discussions. And I think it's President Trump's expectation to meet with President Xi at the G20 at the end of June.
Some fireworks during a House Democratic Ag Committee hearing on Wednesday. The hearing designed to review the Farm Bill conservation programs. The chairman taking issue with FSA Administrator Richard Fordyce's announcement about continuous conservation reserve program sign-up. Watch this exchange with Chairman Colin Peterson.
So why, if you can do it for continuous, why can't you do it for general? What is the rationale?
Well, I would say that we are continuing to go through those decisions on the general sign-up, the rental rate piece, some of the other things that that don't necessarily enter into those continuous.
Well, I mean, you know, did you guys not get the message out of the Farm Bill? You know, the continuous, the sign-up has been $134 an acre. The general is $52. You know, so what you're going to end up doing here is you're going to create a situation where farmers are going to go out there and do everything they can to get it when they find out about these new rental rates to get into the continuous, because they're going to get 3 times as much as they would get if they get in the general. And I don't know what we can do to stop you. If I have to sue you, I will.
Chairman Peterson concerned more acres will be in the continuous sign-up and keep them out of general sign-up without first implementing the new regulations in the Farm Bill. The new Farm Bill has a cap of 24 million acres that will increase to 27 million, phased in over time. A break in the rain for some has more farmers getting out in their fields as quick as they can. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen shows us in today's Crop Comments.
Well, Clinton, Plant 19 is just getting underway for this producer in Kansas. Tanner McNinch of Ness County shared this photo. He called it the obligatory first day of planting shot. Looks like he has some great weather where he is just to get things going along. Let's take a look at that wind speed forecast as we head through today. We're going to be seeing winds strongest in the upper Midwest and also into the southwestern United States. That's where we really see those winds as we have a low pressure that's going to be moving through the area. You'll also notice that we have some wind stretching up to the Great Lakes. That's going to be along a frontal boundary that we're going to be seeing stretched along the nation's midsection. And we'll see some windy conditions on the backside of that front as we get into our Friday forecast. I'll have your national forecast coming up, but for now, here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
Coming up, the demand for pork from China, what one analyst has heard that could be a game changer right now coming up. And later, a new crop for Idaho, but this one has wings. Details in the country.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
Corn futures were higher for a third day in a row on Wednesday, with July futures blowing through their 50-day moving average and soybeans also extending their gains. Here's an update from the CME.
Today in the grain market, soybeans really rose. Short covering just underpinned the spike up. Finally, we did get some up move. That China retaliation was the first sign, and funds recognized that their risk at having a big short position was definitely front and center. Corn also rallied. Planting delays is really bullish news for the corn. The heavy rainfall is hampering seeding further, and yesterday's rebound is starting to gain a little bit of momentum, so it's pushing the market a little bit higher. Wheat also jumped up. The weather is just taking center stage across the board in all the grains. And as the market continues to push higher, you're going to see a scramble and an unraveling of some of these short positions, and it looks like it's kind of underway. So as we're witnessing right now, and that's why we're seeing these sharp up moves, and they're quietly kind of recovering a lot that we have lost over the last number of weeks.
African swine fever continues to spread. Government officials in Vietnam say the country has culled more than 1.2 million pigs infected with ASF, now in 29 Vietnamese provinces. Meanwhile, a fourth South African province has reported an ASF outbreak. The affected areas in South Africa are quarantined, and investigations are underway to trace the origin. John Payne, the author of Swine Times, our guest today. And John, let's talk about this hog market, because that is something that we're continuing to watch as this African swine fever issue is still growing in many parts of the world.
Yeah, and it's not just China. I think we all look at China. They're the ones with the big supply and the big demand picture, but it's all across Southeast Asia right now. It's jumped over the Korean Peninsula. South Korea hasn't really seen a case yet, but we're expecting to see one there. Those are all bullish factors longer term. So the market has taken a little bit of a breather. Going back to the 1st of April, we saw a really nice export number. Everybody jumped on the long side, and we've kind of corrected here, but we're coming into the time of the year where you tend to see the summer contracts perform. We're cheaper than we were going into the 4th of July last year on that July contract. So I think this is your opportunity. I know a lot of folks have reached out to me just through the newsletter about how to buy this market. It's one of those things. I think you have to be in or out. Timing, it's going to be impossible. You can kind of see as we back off into the mid-80s for those front month contracts, they just pop back up on any bullish day. And again, I think we're waiting for that export number, but I've heard some talk of recent that pork, they might be exporting full carcasses now, which is kind of a little bit out of the norm. We tend to export product, you know, the bellies and the butts and things like that, but actual physical carcasses might be headed overseas here just due to the fact that they don't have it. So the numbers are sketchy. You're going to hear a lot of people talk about 100 million, 200 million. Just know this, the U.S. essentially has about 75 million on head. China reportedly has lost 100 million. So between the U.S. and Europe, they're going to have to pick that up. Now, the thought would be the tariffs maybe eliminate the U.S. supply over there, but we're all dealing from the same grocery store, so to speak. So if they want to buy from Europe, those who usually buy from Europe will buy from us. And I think that would be kind of a bullish factor here in the summer.
Yeah, well, it is. There's so many unknowns on this thing, and we do continue to hear that this has got long tail. So we'll keep watching. Appreciate it, John. We'll be back with more AgDay here in just a minute.
To find John's newsletter, This Week in Grain and Oilseeds, head over to www.thisweekingrain.com. Join Andrew McRae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
Welcome back to AgDay. Your meteorologist, Cindy Clausen. Cindy, looking at the weather map here, I think everybody in the middle of the country wants to know, will we get more than just 1 or 2 days of dryness here?
Exactly, and it looks like we're going to have some more spotty rain, but some of the areas that have been really wet will get another day as a break, but we will see those rains picking up. Let's take a look. As you'll notice, we have high pressure across much of the south, but we will see some spotty stuff there. The couple of things to watch will be this frontal boundary. That's going to be slowly sagging to the south. We're going to see showers and thunderstorms along that. The other thing to watch is out west, where we have that low pressure system. Going to have some active weather in much of the west. Putting this into motion, we're going to see low pressure moving off the east coast. There we have this low moving into the Great Lakes. This front will eventually be picking up a lot more moisture, and there'll be plenty of it out west, especially in the higher elevations where we might still be seeing some snow. Now, the next few days could be on the stormy side, especially in the plains and over towards the Mississippi, when these showers and thunderstorms do form, especially as we get into Friday and on into the weekend. Here's that low moving into the eastern lakes and then off into the northeast. We'll see some showers and thunderstorms firing up along this front. Low pressure starts to move into the plains. Still some wet weather, rain and higher elevation snow in the west. And through the day on Friday, some rounds of heavy rain along this front, but we're going to start to pick up a little bit more moisture here. This is a one to watch, especially for the potential for stronger storms as we get into Friday, especially in the evening hours. hours. All right, let's take a look at the last 24 hours, and it hasn't been too much in most areas, but notice we've had a fair amount of wet weather in California. Again, those high elevations, that's in the form of snow. But when you add on the next 24 hours, it's really going to be the west that sees a lot more of that rain and higher elevation snow. And then you start to see some of that moisture really building into parts of the eastern part of the country, eastern parts of the Corn Belt, starting to get into the mid-Atlantic as well. Look at these temperatures, a lot of 80s all the way up into parts of the upper Midwest. You can kind of see where the front is. That's where we're seeing some cooler temperatures, 60 in Bismarck, but near 90 down in Omaha, so a big temperature difference there. A little cool in the east, but things will start to warm up. Heading into the overnight hours, very mild in the east. You can see on the back side of that front, we're back into the 40s and 50s. And then into tomorrow, we start to cool down on the north side of that front. Quick check of the jet stream shows very active weather out in the western parts of the United States as we see trough after trough there, while we keep the temperatures pretty much on the warm side in the eastern part of the country. That's your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Atomic City, Idaho, showers and thunderstorms for you today with a high of 72 degrees. Dowagiac, Michigan, warmer with showers and thunderstorms, especially later. High is in the middle 70s. Harmony, Maine, partly cloudy.
Plans are in the works for a big beef and pork processing plant. Plus, China places some tariffs on U.S. beef. We'll take a look at the impact next.
Drover's Report is sponsored by Corteva Agriscience, Agriculture Division of Dow DuPont, your partner in range and pasture productivity.
Some beef products are on the added list of tariffs from China, but will that have an impact on beef production? We put that question to Drover's editor, Greg Henderson.
Will not have a large impact on beef production and for beef producers this year, mainly because China is still a developing market. We had a 14-year ban on beef going into China that just ended in 2017. 2018, we exported $60 million worth of beef to China. That was under a 37% tariff already, and that was up from a 17% tariff. So,
Greg says that only amounts to a fraction of the $8.3 billion in beef exports last year. Now, Tyson plans to build a new $300 million processing plant for beef and pork in the Salt Lake City, Utah area. The Utah governor's office saying the plant could be operational by 2021. Now, the plant would convert large whole muscle cuts of beef and pork into steaks, chops, roasts, and ground meat that's ready to be sold at grocery stores. It would be similar to facilities Tyson has in Iowa, Tennessee, and Texas. Now, Tyson officials say Utah is a great location because of the availability of labor, property, and access to highways and rail. A first-of-its-kind crop is growing in Idaho, but this one is difficult to keep in one place. A unique farming opportunity apparently is growing. Earlier this year, we showed you a cricket farm in southeast Georgia, but there's another cricket farm in Idaho that just started up operations. Joel Benson with the Idaho Farm Bureau takes us inside this first farm of its kind in the state.
Raising animals has been a long tradition in Idaho, from cows and pigs to horses and goats. But what if the animals being raised are these little critters? Yes, crickets in Idaho. One day we stopped by Eco Balance Farms just outside Buell, Idaho to get a first-hand account of how exactly a person would raise crickets. Founder and nutritionist Starla Barnes thought up the idea of a cricket farm and pitched it to business partner Dean Moreno.
And I was just flabbergasted as far as what the market was out there for it, because my background is in business. And so, and then looking into it, I thought, no, why? Okay, so why isn't everybody doing this? And so, and when she presented it to me, and I thought, oh, okay. When I went back to her, I said, believe it or not, this actually is a viable business.
One of the most glaring things that we witnessed was that the crickets are not confined. Open air and sun are comfortable for these inch-sized creatures. So someone may ask why they don't leave. Well, that has a lot to do with the quality of life. No second-rate accommodations for these crickets. They live in cricket condos that give them everything they need. They have food, water, potato slices, and a catacomb of places to either have some time alone or to hang out with a crowd. The setup for Eco Balance Farms is quite ingenious. They used an existing greenhouse to provide a basic shelf for the farm. Next, they placed plastic sheaths and a ventilation system to create rooms where heat comes in from nearby geothermal sources. Next, they set up different rooms for different developments of the crickets. There are bins for early egg development, later egg development, hatching, and then they're moved to the cricket condos. The harvest of the crickets simply involves recreating winter with a freezer system, and then a sanitized high-protein cricket powder is created through a baking and a grinding process. Reporting for the Idaho Farm Bureau, this is Joel Benson.
And that's all the time we have this morning. Sure glad you tuned in. Spend part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.